No, it's truly a family. There's a reason why they gave us everybody in Jersey Boys. We got the T-shirt from the second anniversary for Broadway that says "Family is everything" on the arm. It's not just a line in the show. I mean, it's truly like it's a very bizarre, sometimes dysfunctional family, but a family nonetheless. And I think I may be one of the rarities that stuck with one company the entire time until I left. I actually just went just for the hell of it the other day. I was home alone. And I was like, I wonder if I still remember some of these monologues. And I started going at it, and it was like getting on a bike. I mean, really? Everything just came to me. I couldn't have told you what the next word was, but it came out anyway.
Nick Massi, he's
actually our favorite season.
Yeah, I mean, we
have a sweet spot for Nick.
We know the least about him, man, and
but we feel like he has the best arc.
And it's so and it's so intriguing to see how different people portray this guy who he didn't make it long enough to see the show, and to really say what he felt and to give his experience. And it's I think of, and you tell me if you feel differently. I think out of all 4 seasons in the characters in Jersey Boys, I think Nick Massi has had the most variation in how actors have portrayed him.
Yeah, and absolutely. But I also think that's because when you have Frankie standing over your shoulder, then you do what he asks you to do. When you have Tommy telling you what to do, then you do what he asks you to do. And when you have Bob sitting there, usually with Richard Hester, telling you what to do, you really listen to what he has to say. But nobody's standing over your shoulder when you play Nick. And while there's guidance because it's what they created for the original show, the truth is there's enormous amount of leeway given to the actors because there's only so much they can give them. Des always gave us direction, but he didn't have a whole lot to say about character other than what they sort of created in their heads.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so what was your approach to Nick Massi? Particularly in Vegas too. I'm sure it was a different kind of crowd that you had to appeal to.
It's funny, after saying that, the first thing that I did was I went and talked to Frankie. And not so much Bob, but Frankie and a little bit Tommy about Nick, to learn about him. I met his family out here in Vegas, which was actually really nice because we got to have dinners at their house. And they would talk. It was actually Tommy's family, but Nick's family would come and visit every once in a while. And so I would sit down and I'd be sitting with Tommy and his nieces and his grand nephew and grand niece, and we would be sitting with Nick's daughter and her husband, and we would I would get to ask questions, and so that's I tried to learn more about him so that I could at least play it as close as possible. The rest, the rest was just building a character, the same way you would build a character that had never existed before and was completely fictional. I just did it with somebody who had lived.
Exactly. And there's so much depth. I people always talk about the shot glasses at the top of Act 2 during the Lorraine interview with Frankie, and how different people would line up the glasses and how different
pour
and everything. And I feel like it's you don't really see much of his. You see glimpses into his alcoholism in the first act, like especially right before Sherry, when Tommy says shut up, Nikki, and drink your wine. That's one of many times that Tommy says that to him. But I think, and you can miss it because in this scene in Act 2 when Lorraine is talking to Frankie, Nick is just there down in shots. And I think that was beautiful the way Des directed that, because you can miss it. And I think Des did it like that on purpose, because and the way Nick is always apart from everyone, like in the backup sessions when everyone is when you guys form that hockey stick formation, which is
awesome
in itself something so cool. Like Nick is always just like, oh yeah, I'm with them, and Nick is always just standing apart from them. I think that was something that Des McAnuff did so masterfully, and just So like, I mean, approaching that, all those issues that, those demons that he was battling, like how did you as an actor portray that as truthfully as you could?
A lot of it is starting with a scene. You start with the words you have to say and the people that you're saying them to. You start with, you layer on how you feel about the person you're talking to and the people who are sitting next to you. And by the time you've layered making your choices, just basic choices about what you're saying and how you would be influenced by somebody you're sitting next to that you like or you don't like, or that you have to like because you're in a band together, but you don't really, once you get there, it's already pretty rich, so then it just becomes about, the subtleties, thinking about the psychology of somebody who has made mistakes in their life that they're trying not to show anybody they regret, but they do. And so, it's finding little moments to show the things that you only show when you're not thinking about it. And that's kind of how you start layering. That's how I started layering that back in. And that's why it was so important for me to sit down. I mean, I think the first person I spoke to was in San Francisco, was with Frankie, and he told me a lot about what it was to rehearse and perform with Nick, and also arrange with Nick. I mean, it's interesting, as I also took, you guys talked about the hockey stick and the different formations and how Des, set Nick aside and kind of behind, and he was always a little bit invisible. And I don't know if it was meant to be, but you take that, and obviously it's been so well crafted at the time we were in Vegas or in San Francisco getting ready for Vegas. There was already 3 companies. We were the 4th company of Jersey Boys, and so you got to sort of learn from what they had already done. So I personally took when I would be blocked to be invisible, I would remember the fact that Nick was the vocal sound of the entire band. He couldn't read music. He would walk up to somebody and he'd say, okay, Frankie, this is what you sing. Okay, Tommy, this is what you sing. And he'd sing it. And that's how they would learn their parts. Wow. But the person, as far as the music goes, isn't Nick. Bob. Bob Crew. This is who is out there. Nick in the music was somewhat invisible.
Wow.
And so I kind of I took the little details like that. Mm-hmm. And then it informs you. It informs how much you move. Somebody like Tommy, from Christian all the way down, there's a lot of movement, very purposeful, big movement. That's because Tommy was noticed. Wherever he went, he was noticed. Whatever he did, he was noticed. He wanted to be noticed. Nick was the opposite. So you don't make a lot of big movements when you're Nick, so it gets all the way down to the minutia of like movement, as the character. And then by the time you're done, suddenly you're on stage, you've done it 1,000 times, and you've just created this thing that you're just living in.
Yeah. Well, with Sergio, with the dancing like this, were you directed to do it a little softer, or do you still have to be sharp for stage?
No. When it came to Sergio and choreography, everything had a purpose. So, and the choreography, we would all not do it perfectly. And the reason is because they wanted to portray the honesty of the fact that these guys were singers. They literally met in front of an ice cream parlor on the streets of Jersey, singing under a lamppost. That's how Nick and Tommy met. And
wow.
They were not dancers. They were singers. This is what they did instinctively. So we just followed. When we were told to dance a certain way, we did. But I don't know if he made choices individually for characters. I think he just wanted to see the whole picture. And the whole picture was, it doesn't matter if you're Frankie or Bob or Tommy or Nick, you're not a dancer. So here's some simple moves that we're giving you. We want it to look like you've been together for a long time and that you move as a unit, but it's not sharp. It's not perfect. You guys aren't Bob Fosse, you're Nick Massi, Tommy DeVito, and that's how he was specific, but he did not inform our characters at all. I don't think.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Because everyone, like every Nick that I can think of, does it so differently.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. Sergio expected a lot of us. So did the team, Danny, Austin, and Kelly Devine, and everybody that I've worked with over the years. They definitely expected it to be what they gave you. And that's a good choreographer will choreograph to the people who can't move just as well as the people who can.
Yep.
But there was also the expectation. There's also the expectation that when we give you something, you do it. So you have to understand it as a mover, or in my case, I think other than Rick Fagno, maybe had a little bit more dance experience than most, but you did what they asked, and they made sure it looked right.
Of course, yeah.
And Rick's a tap dancer.
Right. Yep. So there you go. Could you walk us through your Jersey Boys timeline? So we know you were in San Francisco. Was that December 2007?
Yeah, that was the holiday engagement. It's where it's the only Jersey Boys poster that has the Santa hats on it.
Oh my God. Way. I don't think we've ever seen this one.
Yes, I've never seen that.
Somewhere I've got a playbill. I'm sure sadly buried somewhere. It's not as safe as it should be, but yeah, we all had Santa hats. So it was the Jersey Boys poster and everybody had a Santa hat.
If you could find that and send it to us, like a picture, that would be.
We would love to post
cool.
it. That'd be great. We actually made Silhouettes podcast hats, so maybe they match.
You were all Santa pimps.
Yeah.
Santa pimps.
Yeah.
There you go. Oh, what a night. There we go, people.
What a night.
Merry Christmas.
So you did the holiday engagement.
Yeah. So that cast was pretty much the Vegas cast. There were a few exceptions, and I don't think anybody knew, even the people that didn't come with us to Vegas knew at the time that they weren't going to. So we were all hired as the Vegas cast, and we were essentially just waiting for the Palazzo to be built and for all of the details to be put on the contract between Dodgers and the Sands Corporation. So we finished off right before New Year's. We went directly, we had a little bit of a break and went directly into rehearsals because unlike any other show out there for Jersey Boys, they were looking at how they potentially could cut the script down. And thank God Des stood his ground, and so the producers, and they said, we're not going to cut it like you want us to. I think when it came down to it, they cut maybe 8 minutes off the show. So not a whole lot at all, but we tried, I think 4 different scripts, and we had to perform them in front of Frankie and Bob and the entire creative team in San Francisco, so that they could sort of see what it looks like. And funny thing is what it came down to is we almost did it without an intermission, but Frankie had to go to the bathroom halfway through Act 2. So we said, that's it. We need to have an intermission. So we had an intermission.
It's a long show. It's a long show. Yeah. So they do it on the cruise ship. They do it 90 minutes, no intermission.
So that actually sounds fairly similar to our script. I think when we did it without an intermission, it was about an hour and 40 minutes ish. No, maybe a little bit less than that actually, because it's 2 hours and 10 minutes with an intermission. Is about what the show is supposed to run. And so I guess we were about an hour and a half.
Okay.
Do you remember which scenes were cut in different versions that you had to perform?
Never a whole scene. It was never a whole scene. So they cut out the middle section of Big Girls so that it was shorter and more compact. And that actually stayed in Vegas. They cut out like a line here, a line there, rarely even sections of scenes. They would just cut out, two lines in a conversation, and they kept doing it until they made it all the way through.
Wow. Okay, that's a wonderful way to do it.
When you performed those versions, I'm sorry.
No, you're.
When you performed those versions, you did them like full out, like on stage, tech and everything.
Yeah, and there's so one of the versions we were practicing. I was really hoping we would do it because they were digging up some old stuff from La Jolla for Nick, and they extended his monologue because essentially their concern was, if we don't do it with intermission, how is everybody going to get changed into new costumes for Act 2? Because there just wasn't enough time and we never leave stage. So they gave Nick this extended monologue to connect the beginning of Act 2 into a place where I could leave, change quickly, and then meet them in jail. And
into the fall costume.
Yeah, it was an
Wow.
awesome monologue.
Aw.
And sadly, so two things happened. One, I had a stomach flu when we were in the middle of this like 3-day thing of performing over and over again. And I was literally sweating, and I went totally blank and I missed a line in the monologue, and they made us go back. And as a result, it went a little bit longer, and then Frankie had to go to the bathroom. I always wonder if I was feeling better and could have just driven straight through that monologue, if that's what we would have ended up with.
Oh man. Well, do you remember what was extended? Like what the dialogue was?
Yeah, there was a whole section about Tommy, about what Tommy needed and why he always needed to be the front man and needed to be seen. There was a little, what stayed was what exists on Broadway, and off Broadway now, which is, the whole thing about Bob not really seeing what was going on because all he could think of was the business. So there was a little extension there and that piece of it. And then a little conversation about, some of my regrets as Nick, that weren't quite there the rest of the show. And it was probably 3.5 minutes of a monologue. Wow. And then I was supposed to run off stage, get quickly changed into my suit, and then come back down on stage into the jail.
So what happened between Norm Waxman coming backstage at the Ed Sullivan Show and then Big Man in Town?
Everybody left stage, and I had this extended monologue.
Okay, now I understand. So everyone left the stage, but was there a blackout? Like
no.
Oh, so the whole thing, so that whole underscoring of was that in?
Oh God, this is a long
I'm so sorry.
No, I don't, honestly, they treated it like any of the other monologues that we did during the show, where all that would happen is we would step forward and everything would move behind us. And so I started the monologue and walked over to the top of the spiral staircase the way I would normally do, only as I was going, I was saying a brand new monologue. With bits and pieces of what already existed, plus all of these other things that were sort of the connective tissue that connected everything while everybody got changed. And that's essentially the only reason why it was there as long as it was, because you had to get the band on, the drum kit back, the table rolled off, 4 guys changed into new suits and back on stage long enough to have a slightly extended scene while I was changing. But they were going to ask me to change from one suit into a completely different suit in about 30 seconds. So.
And you're still wearing the Dawn suit, the blue one. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I'd already handed off the jacket I think when we rehearsed it, but I still would have had to get out of the shirt and the pants. And the shoes, if I remember right. Get the new suit on, put everything back on, and go.
It's always the shoes. We're always learning about all these shoe changes. My gosh, that's so stressful.
Oh my God. This is we didn't know. I mean, we knew that there were changes and like they made the show shorter because of like the whole casino thing. Travis told us about. Travis Clover told us about all of that, but we never.
He wasn't actually there for that. He came in by the time Travis got to Vegas. We had been open for a good while, and he just came in and got to do the show. Mm-hmm. He wasn't there. Yeah, our first two Frankies were Rick Fonio and Joe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So by the time he got there, he had the benefit of just learning the show and jumping in.
No, well, thank you for your insight, because this is the pure, like, real transition conversation between San Fran and Vegas.
And this is the niche stuff that we want to know about, man.
Yes. Well, and Jeff, the fact that you're talking about the regrets too, because we've talked to so many people about Nick Massi's character, and some, and even including us, might say that like he didn't regret anything. That's all up to interpretation. We've gotten that.
We've gotten both sides of the spectrum.
But with that extended monologue where he's explicitly saying his regrets, like you have that
there's just so much weight.
I'll tell you what, I can probably look that up and try to pick out some of the bits and pieces, but there wasn't, I'll be honest, there wasn't much. Most of it was about Tommy and Bob.
Okay.
But there was enough to pick on, at least for me as an actor, it gave me a couple of ahas about the show that I did. Even when the monologue disappeared, I thought, okay, they must have written this for a reason. And some of it actually was from stuff in La Jolla that got cut out before it came to New York.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. And the fact that Nick, so we were saying how Frankie, in all of his direct addresses, he's never talking about himself. He's always talking about the people, or he's talking about Tommy or Nick. And then with Nick, he's just talking about Tommy and Bob. So everything is just kind of like a cool ladder down.
It's what Des likes to call the 4 microphones to the 3 microphones to the 2 microphones to the 1 microphone. You know.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
Wow.
Awesome.
Well.
Yeah. And so you were in Vegas from when exactly? Like from when to when?
We opened. Our first preview was April 4th of 2008, and then we officially opened in May. God, what was it? May. It was Frankie's birthday, so that was May 4th.
May 3rd.
May 3rd. That's right. Because I know we had to learn a special version of Happy Birthday that Eric Bergen and Rick and Jeremy Kushner and I sang for him.
And that's when season 2 of our podcast is
premiering
as well. So all the anniversaries on Frankie's birthday.
So cool. I love hearing Jersey Boysified versions of just songs. Like the Australian company with Bobby Fox, they sang the Australian national anthem.
Gorgeous.
Have you seen that video?
I haven't. I've done the U.S. national anthem, the Jersey Boys version, a few times.
Yes,
that is a great version. Yeah.
Wow. Wait, can we talk about your national anthem stories? Like, any cool arrangements or? Yeah, please tell us.
I mean, Ron Melrose wrote sort of a Jersey Boys version of the national anthem, and I don't know when he wrote it. I know the first time that we performed it was at the Las Vegas Speedway.
It
was it was intimidating. I mean, I think by the time we had gotten there, we were still relatively fresh, but we were definitely like the guys in town for a little bit, and so we were definitely feeling that. And the house was full, and it was performing in front of 2,000 people is bigger than that. So 2,700 people was great. This was 100,000 people. The very first time I sang the national anthem for Jersey Boys.
So cool.
Wow.
It was definitely intimidating, and the cars are revving behind you. And as you finish, like there are 5 not just 5 F-15s flying over, but the Thunderbirds flew over because they're housed right at Nellis Air Force Base just down the road. So it was pretty cool. That was awesome. I don't know that I've ever topped that, singing the national anthem solo or Jersey Boys or anywhere.
Aw, wow, what a story. Yeah. So do you live in Las Vegas now?
I do. Yeah, I moved for the show. I was actually my wife and I were on our way to New York when the first audition came in, and I ended up landing the show in Vegas. So we moved to Vegas, and we've just never left.
Great. Awesome. And so could you walk us through, of course, with your NF Hope concert? So how did you go from Jersey Boys to getting into your benefit and all that stuff?
So I was in Jersey Boys for, I'd been here for a couple of years in Vegas already. Our daughter had been born, and when she was young, when she's only 3 months old, her pediatrician noticed what looked like birthmarks on her chest and on her arm and on her leg. And she noticed that when she came in subsequent times, there were actually more of them. And so we didn't know what that meant, but she immediately, thank goodness, because many people don't know of it, she said, this might be a symptom of something called neurofibromatosis. And so we went through about a 6-month process of getting her officially diagnosed. And NF can be a very scary thing. It is, period. But what makes it scary are the possibilities for difficult symptoms and challenges. And so the first thing that most people do, that most NF families who have been around for a while tell them not to, is they go to Google. That's what we did. And the first thing you see are the cases that are of interest to medical students, and to show some of the extreme symptoms that are possible. When you suddenly are thinking of it in terms of your own child, it's not just a strange picture online. It's, oh my gosh, this could be my daughter. And so after about 3 weeks of looking stuff up and many moments of tears, we decided that it was time to stop looking and maybe find an organization that we can call and really find out what we can do. Like, how can you be proactive for your child? What does it really mean to have a child with this disorder? So I picked up the phone and called an organization called Neurofibromatosis Network. At the time, they were called NF Inc. And they're a grassroots organization, which is one of the reasons I called them. There is another organization that's a little bit more corporate, but they didn't really have an outreach phone number that I could find that made sense. So I called NF Network, and the executive director picked up the phone. And we spent 2 hours on the phone together. And she talked about what it was like to be an NF mom and the challenges that they've had to face and the best things you can do to be proactive. It was essentially everything that I was hoping to find. But I was just so blown away by the fact that it wasn't a social worker I was talking to, it was the executive director. And so in that conversation, she said, I'm so fascinated by the fact that you're in Jersey Boys. We all know what that is. Can you think of anything that you could do to help? And I immediately said yes, before really even thinking about it. And as I was saying it, I thought, well, here's a Gershwin-esque idea. Let's throw in a show in a barn. And so that's what I aim to do. So my wife and I started doing some work. And in 2011, after a couple of hiccups, we ended up in the barn that Elvis built, the Las Vegas Hilton.
Wow.
And it was a horrible flop the first year.
Oh no!
The show wasn't. I mean, it was everybody. I think you'll find when it comes to giving back, using your talent, that most performers are very generous, and everybody was, and the talent was amazing. But I didn't know anything about producing, and despite every effort to get people to come, nobody knew the word neurofibromatosis, and so they didn't know why they should show up. So in a 1,500 seat house, we had 197 people sitting in the front middle section, and it was empty. And the show went long, and I had dreams of 6-figure fundraising, and I think we raised about $13,000, which isn't anything to shake a stick at, but it was a start. And I figured, okay, maybe I'll try something else next year or the year after that. And then somebody asked me as we were cleaning up the auction, they said, "So when's the next one?"
I love that.
And I said, I don't know. We'll get back to you. And so immediately we started talking about it and jumped into the next one, and we've never looked back.
Wonderful. It's so beautiful.
And we've had the amazing opportunity to also promote Donnie Kerr's Rockers on Broadway concert, which is, it deals with something different, but I feel like you guys kind of have that same grassroots story where you guys just got a bunch of people together, put on a concert, and now look at where you are now.
Right. And you do 3 concerts a year?
So now I do. So it was just Vegas until 2017. And then 2017, I made my first attempt at producing something in New York. Definitely small. It was more about planting the flagpole in New York City than it was about really raising money that first year. And then the next year, because it went so well in New York, relatively, we decided to try Chicago, which is where NF Network is located. And ever since we've done it, and obviously until last year.
Of course, yeah.
And then last year we had to cancel New York and Chicago, and I suddenly became a virtual events producer. And now I'm,
look at you, man.
On May 2nd, I'm about to produce my 3rd virtual event and learning all about hybrid events so that I can do that in October for our 11th concert in Las Vegas.
11th concert. That's incredible. You should be so proud of yourself and you and your wife, Melody, too. And we wish the best for your daughter. Is everything okay?
Yeah, the tough part about COVID is that her hospital, where all of her doctors are, is in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles isn't exactly the place that we wanted to go, even as healthy adults, but let alone with a child who could potentially be high risk. So we've purposely avoided it, and as a result, she hasn't had MRIs, she hasn't had doctor's visits in 14 months, and normally in this time she would have had 3 of them. Not to mention the surgery that was supposed to happen last summer. So Yeah, she's okay. But we're about to go in for MRIs probably in June, and we until we see the pictures, we don't really know.
Right.
And you're
Okay.
gonna go to LA or?
We are, yeah. Unfortunately, it's wonderful to live in Las Vegas. The weather's great. It's inexpensive, but there's horrible medical care here, and literally in the
Wow.
entire state. Because I've now helped many families, new NF families in the state of Nevada. There literally is not a single NF doctor in this entire state. So I send everybody to either Los Angeles or San Francisco or Utah, unless they can really go somewhere, and I'll tell them to get on a plane and go to Chicago.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of involvement in Chicago also.
There's just a lot of specialists in the Chicago area or just outside of it. Essentially, I don't know why it became a hub for it, but some of the top NF specialists are in that area.
Well, and you're helping like so many families, which is awesome. And yeah, we give you all the credit in the world for doing this.
And making it easier for families to deal with something that has no known cure, no known treatment. I mean,
yeah. So what could you explain what it is for our listeners too? Just yeah.
Yeah, neurofibromatosis is a genetic disorder of the nervous system that's characterized by tumors that can grow on nerves. That's that's the main type of tumor is called a neurofibroma, which is where this disorder got its name. But there are a number of symptoms that go along with it. Unfortunately, there's about 3,000 genetic mutations that can cause NF that they know of, and there's potentially more. So, and even if if you line 5 people up with the same identical genetic mutation, they could all have different symptoms. But symptoms range anywhere from, the cafe lait spots with those birthmark things that we noticed when she was young, to blindness, deafness, chronic pain. Very common are attention and learning disorders. And then in the more extreme side, there are, incurable cancers, and deformation, and in many cases death. So finding a cure is really kind of what I'm in here for. But last year, actually, we saw the very first FDA approved treatment for a certain type of NF tumor that Emma has.
Beautiful.
In her leg. So it's a baby step, but it's a pretty good one, and it's that's why we keep fighting, because now we've made progress. Now we have to continue going until there's another treatment and another treatment, and there's a cure one day, and I don't have to produce concerts anymore because they're not necessary.
Right. No, it's that turning point where we're so happy to hear from that, like last summer. That's wonderful. And you have so many great Broadway all-stars like on your side too, but this is great. Like your lineup is amazing. You have Lea Salonga, you have Betty Buckley, you have
Derrick Baskin,
Sebastian Arcelus, and Stephanie J. Block. Oh my gosh. So how do you go about producing your shows?
Well, when it started here in Vegas, it was just about literally knocking on my friends' dressing room doors and saying, would you want to perform? Or just picking a phone to anybody that we'd met on the Strip. And that's kind of the way it continued. Every time a new show would come in, like Rock of Ages, I would get to know the cast, and I would invite them. And anytime we had an opportunity to hang around with other performers, I would get to know them so that I could ask. And if I didn't know them myself, I would find somebody who did. And that's just kind of how it goes. Eventually every once in a while I find a big name that I just am paying to come in and do it. But that's a very rare thing. And when it comes to the Broadway community, everybody knows everybody. So I have, direct contacts with Betty Buckley. I have direct contacts. I've been friends with Lea Salonga since Peter Sade introduced me to her, a handful of years ago, or more than a handful of years ago. And Derrick, I did Memphis, world premiere of Memphis with many years ago. And, and Stephanie and I've met Sebastian obviously in New York with Jersey Boys, but Stephanie and Sebastian we have mutual friends, and so it just becomes about, hey, can you connect me with them? And then I tell the story. And if they connect with the story and they're available, then it's a very rare thing that somebody says no. And in this case, I was just ecstatic that not only everybody, but I mean, Broadway royalty said yes. And that's kind of how it came around. And plus, we're celebrating our 10th year. So we've had 16 concerts at this point around the country. This is going to be number 17. And and May is NF Awareness Month. So I thought if there's a time to go big and celebrate Broadway, the Broadway community also being 80% of the performers that have stood on the NF Hope concert stage over the years. This was the time. And plus I want to give back to this community. So in addition to giving the proceeds to Neurofibromatosis Network, who's always gotten the proceeds from these concerts, I'm giving a portion of the proceeds to the Actors Fund to help with their COVID relief. And so this is my way of saying thank you to the Broadway community for supporting us over the last 10 years. But I think that made it easier for a lot of these people to say yes.
Of course, yes. And the show is on a Sunday kind of love too. So it's perfect timing. Sunday,
exactly.
May 2nd.
Spread the love,
Yes.
Spread the hope, spread everything.
Spread everything. Maybe not everything. There are kids watching this.
So Sunday, May 2nd, 2021, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yes.
And then
please let us know where we can find and register for tickets and donations, all that good stuff.
The easiest place to go is to go to nfhope.org and then just follow the links on the very front of the page. If you're good at memorizing URLs, it's nfhopelive21.givesmart.com. So nfhopelive21. Another way to do it is if you want to text nfhopelive21 to 76278. That's there. So here's the cool thing. So in addition to having, the concert that's got Betty Buckley and Lea Salonga and Stephanie J. Block and Sebastian Arcelus and Derrick Baskin and Aisha Jackson, who's
Aisha Jackson.
Her voice is ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
And then of course Adam Jacobs, because my good buddy James Eigelhart, who's in Hamilton right now, he won the Tony for the genie in Aladdin. He helped connect me with Adam, along with my buddy John Michael Coppola, who you probably know.
Hey, Four C Notes. Yeah, we had him on the show. Yeah.
So John actually connected me directly with Adam, but James put in a good word for me along the way. So it's an amazing cast. And plus, speaking of John Michael Coppola, his group, the Four C Notes, will be performing as well. Some songs you probably like and recognize.
Do we know any songs that the Four C Notes would sing?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Is it it's a cover band for who? Who is
it? Like Frankie Vastaluccio.
Frankie with the
nice.
V.
I think
that's.
Thank
you. So in addition to this amazing lineup, we also have an auction. So and this is the first auction we've had in a very long time because nobody's been able to give us anything to donate, but you can get tickets, VIP tickets to the next year's New York, Chicago, and Las Vegas NF Hope concerts, or actually the NF Hope concert for Vegas are VIP tickets for October, and there's only going to be about 20 or 30 people on site. So they're pretty special tickets. Plus there are private concerts that are available. I'm producing private concerts for the winners with my buddy Avery Rausch, who's an NF, actually has NF2, an amazing talented, just moved to New York. Randall Keith was one of the longest running Jean Valjean in Les Mis history on Broadway. And then another friend, Gavin Coyle, who's this ridiculous Irish tenor. And then I was convinced by people that I was told that I had to put my own private concert on there. So somebody could win a private concert with me and vacation packages. So it's going to be a fun day. And in addition, there's actually going to be a contest that we're starting with some young potential future Broadway performers that will win a chance to get flight to go perform at the next NF Hope concert in New York next year.
Wow, what an opportunity!
Amazing.
Yeah. That's great. And it's all live, right? It's a live. Is it recorded?
It's a live stream. Yeah. I will freely admit, Lea, if she were to perform live, it would be like 7 a.m. for her. So I do have some pre-recorded stuff for reasons like that.
Yes.
But my co-host is going to surprise us, and we have a couple other surprises, and we definitely have some people on live with us. So it's going to be, and I'm obviously me and my co-host Jesse Schramm from Once Upon a Time and Nashville and Chicago Med. The two of us are going to co-host live together.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful.
I'm so excited.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, May 2nd, Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we will be there.
We will be there. It's going to, I was at the concert in 2019 at Subculture, and it was wonderful energy that everyone there, Aaron DeJesus performed, Him and his wife Gail Bennett performed a duet. Drew Gehling sang a number. I don't remember who else was there, but it was a beautiful, beautiful concert. I think it was the first thing I ever went to at Subculture. Yeah, a great space, and it was really a beautiful concert, man. You do great work, and we're happy and we're able to support, amazing organizations like this, and this amazing connection back to Jersey Boys, man.
Yeah. That's my.
Yeah, you're Jeff Leibow.
Jeff Leibow, man.
I haven't felt like that Jeff Leibow in a long time, but I appreciate you guys having me on. And remember, everybody, the concert's free Sunday. So if you can throw a few bucks at the cause, it's not only going to help NF, it's also going to help the Actors Fund. So hopefully everybody can come join us and come see some amazing entertainment and support a great cause. And I guess you'll get to see Jeff Leibow the one you're at.
Hell yeah.
Well, we're stoked. We can't wait. And for everybody, so the links to everything are actually already in our bio on Instagram. So just check it out, register, and donate as much as you can.
Check out our last Instagram post. We posted the flyer. Check out the links. And
we'll see you at the live stream.
We'll see you at the live stream.
Yeah.
Yes. And
awesome.
Salud.
See, I didn't know supposed to have a drink.
No, it's okay.
Brand new, actually.
Cool.
So, okay.
Nicholas
huge thank you to
Desi Jamar.
Yes, Superheroes in Love. They made us
and
this.
they made us Silhouettes JB podcast Yeti mugs
it was so
with
sick.
our names on them. And